Hi, I'm Connor.
I'm Sydney.
And I'm Skylar, and our story tonight is about the tornado that terrorized Iowa Avenue in 2006, according to KCRG. This story was brought up when we first interviewed Mark Paterno, the owner of Marco's Grilled Cheese, Paco's Tacos, and George's Gyros.
After further analysis, we discovered that not many current University of Iowa students know that there was a huge tornado that ripped apart Iowa City. So that is why we think it is important to make everyone aware of what happened.
So to help tell us the story, we have with us tonight Mark Paterno, the owner of the Penn Mall Food Carts, Kelly Mercer, a now Coralville resident who once attended the University of Iowa, and my track coach, Jason Wakenight.
It had been 35 years since a tornado had touched down near the University of Iowa campus. That is, until the night of Thursday, April 13th in 2006. On that night, an F2 tornado struck the heart of downtown Iowa City.
Now on an F2 on a scale that goes up to F5 may not seem too bad, but you are greatly mistaken. According to the Storm Prediction Center of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration website, an F2 tornado can cause considerable damage, such as the roof and walls of buildings being torn off, large trees destroyed or uprooted, cars lifted from the ground, and can have winds up to 157 miles per hour.
Mark, we heard the night of the tornado was the same night you had purchased the George's Gyros cart. Could you tell us more about that?
So literally the night of the tornadoes in 2000, what was that? 2006. So
Yeah.
George signed the purchase agreement at his front door as I'm looking over to the west and thinking, wow, that's a funny looking green sky. So George signs the purchase agreement. 3 or 4 hours later, that tornado goes through the Ped Mall, picks up George's Gyros cart, slams it down on the ground, breaks it. George calls me the next day saying, Marco, I don't think you want to buy the cart anymore. I'm like, why, George? Tornado broke the cart. I said, it's fine, George. Your insurance will cover it. He's like, no insurance, Marco. I said, George, let's just not worry about the tornado. Let's just go ahead and proceed with the sale.
George's cart was only a small fraction of the damages done. The damage caused by the storm cost the city around $15 million to restore and required the National Guard to come in and help clean up the mess.
The tornado started at the southwest edge of Iowa City, where it struck multiple car dealerships, damaging over 200 cars in one dealership and leaving another dealership in complete rubble.
From there, it began to move northeast while taking off the roof of a 53-year-old Dairy Queen right next to the Iowa River while workers were inside.
Kelly, what were you doing on this day?
It was my husband's birthday, and we were living in Coralville, right down just off 5th Street in Coralville, so just a little ways down from here. And we watched the tornado going over Iowa City. You could see it hitting Iowa City, and I went down, actually drove downtown after the tornado. I don't know why. I think I was like going to my cousin's house or something. We were just gonna like hang.
What was your reaction to all of the damage?
Holy shit, this was bad. I mean, it was like a war zone. There were cars that like flipped upside down, trees everywhere. Couldn't get anywhere, so I couldn't get to my cousin's house because it went right over the river, so.
That sounds just like what I've heard. After the George's Gyros cart was hit, we have heard that the tornado moved toward Iowa Avenue, where it uprooted 100-year-old trees, snapped traffic lights, tossed cars about, and heavily damaged St. Patrick's Catholic Church.
You almost forgot to tell us about how the tornado opened up the Alpha Chi Omega house like a dollhouse.
Sydney, didn't you mention that your coach was somewhat excited for the tornado?
Yeah, I remember him telling me how he looked forward to the tornado. Jason, could you explain to them how you remember the tornado?
At the time, I actually had really kept up with the weather. I knew that there were some storms coming in. I really wasn't too worried about it. In my past, in my youth, I grew up in Kansas, so tornadoes and inclement weather wasn't anything that really worried me. I know a lot of other people were worried and were preparing for the worst. So what I remember is being a student athlete, being in the academic Jardine Learning Center, and not being allowed to leave. I didn't think it was a big deal. I was wanting to head back to my apartment, and then being told that everyone had to stay put and that a tornado was approaching Iowa City was a little startling, but it was also kind of exciting, you know, to be a little bit older and kind of witness what would end up being a historical event. So I remember quite a bit as far as people being told to stay in one place, and by the time the actual tornado was in Iowa City, the weather was so wild and crazy as far as changing temperatures that I was more interested and intrigued by what was happening than scared.
You also told me about a situation where you almost seriously got injured. What happened again?
You know, at the Jardine Learning Center, we were maybe a half a mile away from where the tornado struck at its worst. But we were definitely a lot closer and a lot closer to the line of fire than I think I even realized at the time. Hail was falling, and it was a variety of pieces in different sizes and shapes. And so, you know, I had never witnessed hail quite the same size as had been falling. You know, we are always used to hailstorms that are, you know, maybe the size of dimes or quarters, but I had never seen anything the size of a softball or a baseball, and so that was pretty amazing to me. You know, I actually saw a large piece of hail that was, you know, even bigger than a softball, somewhere between softball and football size, and being a youth, I wasn't, you know, thinking quite right, and so I took a quick sprint outside to pick it up, and another large piece of hail landed, you know, about 5 feet away from me, and I scooted back inside as soon as I could, but I had picked up, you know, that really large piece of hail, and to see basically a football-sized piece of ice just land on the ground from the heavens was pretty startling, and it was a pretty amazing thing to just be sitting there and holding it in your hand, and it, you know, took an hour to melt. It was just a solid block of ice, so it was pretty wild to be able to literally touch the storm firsthand.
That's crazy. So, was there any point where your excitement for the storm turned into fear?
For a while, at least for the next 24 hours, I was more interested in seeing what the storm had done than anything, and only later on did it dawn on me that some buildings and some establishments had been taken out, and I didn't really understand the gravity of the event until, you know, at least a day or two later. You know, right down Burlington and Gilbert, you know, I had lived in an apartment right on that corner, and a building literally next door within 10 feet of the old apartment I had been living in had been completely wiped out. I believe that was like Happy Joe's Pizzeria. It was gone. You know, there was a corner church that was missing brick by brick in its entire roof. And so to see those things firsthand as I drove through campus a day or two later, that was really when it hit me. I realized, wow, this wasn't a storm. This wasn't a thunderstorm. This was a natural disaster and something that was actually dangerous. Like I said, I was shocked when I witnessed firsthand the damage that the storm had done, and that was kind of a game changer for me.
It sounds like you were all affected by the storm in one way or another. I know George's Euro cart was destroyed, Mark, but from the sound of things, it's a blessing that you all managed to stay safe.
All in all, with the excitement of the storm came great tragedy. Over 1,000 homes were damaged in the area, and 30 people were injured. So, just like Connor said, I'm glad you guys all managed to stay safe when so many others were unable to.